We've been talking all year about how Steph Curry needs some help. Is it time we start talking about how Steph Curry and Jonathan Kuminga need some help? Have the Warriors found their second scorer? On today's Locked On Dubs.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is the good word, everyone? We appreciate you for making us a part of your day. This is Locked On Warriors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Now is also a good time to tell you that we have a free newsletter. If you're watching on YouTube, link is on the bottom, lockedondaily.com. That is where the free Warriors newsletter filled with news, notes, nuggets, and NBA content, and a link to the show is directly sent to your email. And again, it is free. You can also find our show wherever you get your audio podcasts. We stream after just about every single game and Monday through Friday. My name's Charlie Walter, formerly a host on 95.7 The Game. That's the flagship of the Golden State Warriors in the Bay Area. Also covered the team for 3 seasons for CBS News Bay Area. That is KPIX. Co-host is Matt Kolsky. He did the same at 95.7 The Game, also hosted shows, and you can still hear him on the airwaves from time to time at KNBR. Kolsky, this is a big-time show for you, man. You've been on the Jonathan Kuminga hype train from the day that I met you, literally the day that I met you. I said, he may have a ceiling of Luol Deng. You said, Chuck, Luol Deng, get the hell out of here, man. But right now, Jonathan Kuminga is the only player in the NBA with multiple 30-point games coming off the bench. He did it in back-to-back games. We've been talking all year about finding a second scorer, finding Steph Curry some help. Is it time that the Golden State Warriors start building around 2 players? Their veteran in Steph Curry and their young, tantalizing talent in Jonathan Kuminga. Welcome into the show.
Hey, yeah, very exciting time for Jonathan Kuminga stands. It's funny because I don't feel like anything has changed other than playing time, but I think if he continues to play, he'll continue to score. And the real test is when he has a bad game, because that's been the issue, right? I mean, he has had good games before. He's had great games before. But then when he has 1 or 2 stinkers, he's back to 15 minutes a night. So the question is he going to be allowed to play through more mistakes, which are certainly coming? He's still 22. He's still very young and experienced. So we'll see. But right now I'm very happy. He's playing great. He's being given opportunities. And I shouldn't say nothing has changed but playing time, because Kalena pointed this out a few times. They are putting him in better positions to succeed. And he is succeeding. So to answer your question, I think absolutely. I think it's a mistake that more has not been done to put Kuminga in the best positions to succeed. Because as I keep saying, that I do love Jonathan Kuminga. I have had my eyes on him as a prospect since before he was a Warrior. But when I've been complaining about the way the Warriors have used him, it's not for my enjoyment. It's because I really think the best version of the Warriors has to have a really engaged and playing well version of Jonathan Kuminga. So hopefully we're on our way to that. And man, it's the fact that he hit some free throws down the stretch, the fact that he's been in the 70% range on free throws lately, and the way he is attacking the rim, it could really change everything that's been happening with the Warriors in terms of their inability to score. So let's go.
You talk about better positions to succeed with Jonathan Kuminga. What does that mean? Because what I saw from Kuminga was a lot of lob attempts early. At the end of the game, a lot of positions where he just had some ISO opportunities with like a Plumlee guarding him and would just take advantage of that, would get to the free throw line with some foul calls. But I also saw a few plays there where he just muscled his way in and used, I want to say that like turnaround jumper that I think can be just a lethal part of his game. But he didn't even go with the turnaround J. He just literally backed his way in until the defenders got to the point where they're like, all right, this guy's stronger, bigger, more physical than me. I can't stop him. And he just laid it up and in. But what is a better position to succeed to you?
Well, it's a couple of things. First of all, it's who he's playing with. The more time he's out there with Steph and Draymond, the more opportunity he gets. I also think and Kalena talked about this, it's putting him in different spots as a cutter. You're right that he had a lot of opportunities last night where it was bully ball, right? And he is so strong for a 22-year-old. Like, he's got young man strength, whatever that is. And when there's a smaller guy on him, he can just bruise them right under the basket. And, he strangely usually goes with layups in those moments, but I feel like he could be dunking on people down there too. And then there's just, man, there was one play last night where it was like a classic Iguodala finish for him, where Steph drew extra guys. Kuminga was in the corner. Draymond got it coming down the lane. Kuminga's guy came to help, and Jonathan just came straight down the baseline for a wide open alley-oop. They got to find more of those opportunities for him, and I think that involves being a little bit intentional about it. Thinking about, how do I get this guy going? It's always been move the ball, and let Steph do his thing. And I think there just has to be some acknowledgement that what you get out of Jonathan Kuminga when you do stuff for him is enough to justify the decision. So it's those things, but you're right that it's him too, and look, everybody knows that's what Steve Kerr has been on about. That's why Kerr has been harsh on Kuminga. That's probably why his playing time has not been what people like me would want. He's trying to get him to do those things. He's trying to get him to not shoot as many threes and mid-range jumpers. I mean, he had that presser talking about mid-range jumpers killing the team, right? Like, he wants Jonathan Kuminga to keep going until he gets to the rim. And I think what we're seeing is if he has that determination, more often than not, he can get to the rim against almost anybody. So there was a moment last night where Kalena said they're playing Kuminga like he's Giannis. And that's what you want. Look, he's not Giannis, obviously, but he is a physical presence that is difficult to stop. And that requires attention from defenses. And the more he draws that attention, the more obviously Steph Curry, but really all the other guys can get good open looks. And, that may not have panned out over the large part of the night last night, but when it mattered, Dennis Schroeder knocked down a couple of shots, and eventually Buddy Hield will start hitting again. And Kuminga drawing extra attention is going to help those things succeed.
Glad you mentioned Buddy Hield, because Draymond Green had some harsh words caught on the mic to Buddy Hield. He explained it in the post-game press conference. We're going to describe that entire scenario unfolding. Also, Draymond Green has said that he knows he's going to have to play some center in order to keep Jonathan Kuminga on the floor, which brings up the question, why not just go out there and find yourself a center? Is it easier said than done? We're going to debate that. Mike Brown fired from the Sacramento Kings. What the hell was that all about? And plus Zion Williamson. I made the proclamation last night that he could be a buy low candidate to be a star that helps out this team, but you're not going to give up Jonathan Kuminga to get him. Could it happen without Jonathan Kuminga in a package? And would it make any sense for the Warriors to explore that? We will explain coming up on Locked On Dubs. All right. So if you want to celebrate and stay connected with people you are far away from and missing someone this holiday season, or just getting a gift ready for them next holiday season, tell you what the perfect gift is for the holiday. If gift giving is not your thing and you're trying to find a gift for a group of people, this is the one. Skylight Frame is the touchscreen digital photo frame for your whole family, and they will love it. Upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds. Setup takes less than 60 seconds. You can invite your family and friends to easily share photos via the Skylight mobile app or email with no account or subscription required. It looks beautiful in your home. The photos are displayed in HD resolution, and you can choose from 5 different frame styles, set it up in portrait or landscape mode. It's the top-rated brand with over 1 million happy customers, thousands of 5-star reviews, and available in over 30 countries. Recommended by the Today Show, Forbes, New York Magazine, and more. And now we have a special limited time offer for our listeners. Get $20 off your purchase of Skylight Frame when you go to skylightframe.com/MBA. That's skylightframe.com/MBA. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/NBA. Back to the show. All right, so the Golden State Warriors back over 500, 16-15 on the season with the win over the Phoenix Suns, and now it's getting ready for a team that gave you hell in the first matchup, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Although the first matchup, you didn't have Jonathan Kuminga playing like this, and now becomes the massive question. Kuminga, for the first time in his career, strings together 2 consecutive career performances. Can this just be who he is every single night? First question is he going to be coming off the bench for the rest of the season? Seems like Draymond Green has been slid back into that starting lineup after Steve Kerr literally said to the entire world in a press conference, now Kuminga's our guy. Draymond's going to be coming off the bench. That didn't last long. Draymond acknowledged that with the way Kuminga's playing and just the talent that he is, Draymond's going to have to play a lot of center, which brings up the question, and this isn't a jab at Draymond. He's one of the greatest players in franchise history. But why do we look at him as such an untradeable player if the formula for the Warriors being able to play Kuminga at the same time as some other players that they need to play him with, one being maybe Andrew Wiggins, with that point of attack defense that Wiggins brings, even when he's not scoring? I mean, Draymond makes about $26 million. I don't think he's an easy contract to unload just because of the way that he plays for the Warriors. And this isn't a trade Draymond piece. It's more a matter of, like, we're talking about how Kuminga doesn't fit on this team. I mean, when's it time to start talking about, hey, Kuminga needs those minutes. Kuminga needs to be the guy at that 4 spot or find a way to put him at the 3 with the center that can stretch the floor. Like, how are we going to get this done?
Well, I mean, you've hit on the problem, right? There's a few things I think about this. The first one is, and this is weird, but I'm not comparing them as players. Like, historically, there's no question Draymond is better than Andrew Wiggins. But who has more trade value? They make about the same amount of money. If I'm another team, am I more interested in Draymond Green or Andrew Wiggins at that price? Who is going to net more return for the Warriors? Because
how does the league view Draymond is my big question. Like, how do they view him outside of the Golden State Warriors? Because his game's just it's interesting. We haven't seen many players like him.
He's very unique. I think everyone knows he's an elite defender. I think everyone knows he's an elite creator on offense, especially for someone of that size, that position. I think everyone also knows he can be difficult. And he's not really a scoring option, although last night he was very good doing that. And he has been hitting his threes this year. So maybe he's a better scoring option than we've traditionally thought of him as. But his greatest value remains a telepathic connection with the greatest player on the team. And nobody else has that. No one else who would trade for Draymond Green has Steph Curry. So he's always going to be most valuable playing with Steph Curry. And my instinct is Andrew Wiggins is, 29, 30? He's right in the middle of his potential prime. He's capable of scoring on a good night. He is a very capable defender, and he seems to be doing that very consistently. I tend to think he has more trade value to other teams, and I don't think there's any question that Draymond Green has more value to the Warriors. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you're talking about trading Draymond, you ought to be talking about trading Andrew Wiggins. Now, how does that affect Kuminga? The trick with Draymond is that it's not just that he needs to play center to make space for Kuminga when Wiggins is playing the 3. It's that his best position is center. So the whole team gets an advantage when Draymond plays center because he is unnaturally capable of defending that position given his size, and he's a nightmare for other teams to deal with on from his offensive side. Not because he's such a great shooter or scorer, because he's all over the floor handling the ball and making plays, and centers are not used to chasing that, and defenses get scrambled trying to deal with it. And again, of course, the ESP with Steph. So your best team, certainly now, has Draymond at center. And, Wiggins is your 3 because he's the guy that's here. But he does feel more replaceable. So what I wonder about your scenario is if they can get a center using Andrew Wiggins as the key piece. Now, are you ready to play Jonathan Kuminga at the 3? It's going to be a very big lineup, but
good.
I don't know a better way to get your best players on the floor, because then your closing lineup, if you move Wiggins for a high level center who can stretch the floor, your best lineup is going to be Steph, Schroeder, Kuminga, Draymond, and let's call him Miles Turner for the sake of argument.
It'd be Vucevic because he's actually probably on the block and Miles Turner isn't. That matters.
Yeah, well, but take your time. We don't know what's going to happen with Miles Turner, and Vucevic would really muck things up. So even if it's Vucevic, right? I think he makes 30, so that's probably Wiggins plus Gary Payton or something like that, right? And I can tell you the Bulls would. I'm trying to think of a way to say this. That's
I think Vucevic is 20.
Only $20 million a year. Are you sure?
I believe so. I'll look that up while you keep talking.
Okay. Well, in that case, you'd probably have to you'd have to get something else from the Bulls to make the money work if it was Wiggins for Vucevic. I don't think you can trade for a center without unloading.
20 on the nose. 20 on the nose.
Great. Well, that's easier. But I don't think you can trade for a center without moving Wiggins. Because if you add a center who wants to, who demands 30 minutes, even if you don't give it to him, who deserves 20 or 25, how are you going to do that? I mean, if you have Wiggins, Kuminga, Draymond, and a center, it's too many front court players, quite frankly. And with all due respect to Andrew Wiggins, I don't think there's any question that you'd rather have the ball in Jonathan Kuminga's hands right now on offense, right? So if Andrew Wiggins is basically just Josh Okogie for you, he might be more valuable to someone else. So if you're going to make a deal for a center, I think it's got to be Andrew Wiggins. Now, the trick there is if you trade Andrew Wiggins for Nikola Vucevic, you have drastically hindered your defense. And as much as they need an offensive boost generally, I'm not sure they can afford to do it at the cost of a defense that continues to play pretty well. And that last night, that defense was important. And I will say, and Kuminga spent most of the time on Kevin Durant, which is a great sign. I mean, I do think his point of attack defense is close to Andrew Wiggins's. He is not as good of a team defender as Andrew Wiggins. That is certainly true. So you would be giving up some defense at the 3, but I think you'd be adding more consistent offense if you're essentially replacing Wiggins with Kuminga. It's a tricky problem, though, and there are not a lot of good centers who are available. Like, Vucevic is far from a perfect fit, and as you say, Miles Turner has yet to really become available. So if Vucevic is the best option, I think you might be better off standing pat, and that's going to be the challenge for the Warriors. It's not going to be measuring different trades against each other as much as it is measuring their trade opportunities against what they can get from this group just by playing better.
Yeah, and that's where, it's not really throwing in the towel on a season. You still try to go out there and win as many games as possible, and maybe use the Schroeder trade chip to land you someone else or to land you some potential draft capital down the road. But the hard thing about this entire situation is you're playing to win one more in the next 3 years, because you have Steph Curry for a minute now. It's not all or nothing this season, but it feels that way because this is a franchise that has been all or nothing for a long time now, for the most part.
Also,
You could still go out there in the offseason, is what I'm saying, and get that center, right? You could find that center. However, the financial flexibility, if you're extending Jonathan Kuminga, it doesn't get any easier. You're tied into Draymond, Wiggins, and Curry, which is a lot of your salary cap space for a long time.
Almost anything you would do has to include giving up one of those principal players. And I mean, Steph is not a non-option. Draymond seems unlikely. So we're basically talking about, can you get something for Andrew Wiggins, or do you decide to move on from Jonathan Kuminga? I can't see moving on from Kuminga. I think it would be the most insane thing. I mean, for a franchise that, look, we can talk about winning another chip in Steph's last 3 years, but that is not likely, no matter what they do. That is a tall mountain to climb under any circumstances, but especially with
it's a young man's league. It's a young man's league. It's a physical man's league. It's a big man's league, not a shorter, older man.
And that's part of why it feels so urgent now. Is Steph Curry is definitely still good enough to lead a championship team, and who knows if that'll be the case even next year, right? But Kuminga is the only meaningful post-Curry piece on this roster right now. I mean, I like Podziemski. Everybody likes Moses Moody. But if we're talking about things that mean something for real in the NBA, Kuminga is the only guy on the roster who can obviously be a central part of the post-Steph Curry future. And if you give him up, you are really officially signing up for at least a couple of years of absolute garbage after Steph Curry is gone. And I don't think my theory on this has always been the same fans who yell at you to trade Jonathan Kuminga to help Steph Curry now. They're not going to give you a break when you suck after Steph Curry retires. They're not going to go, oh, well, I insisted that you trade Jonathan Kuminga, so I'll take a couple years of 25 wins. No, they don't act that way. So they may say they want to trade everything to get Steph Curry another championship, but they don't really. That's not really what fans want either. Nothing is worse than watching a team lose 60 games. Nothing. I've done it too many times.
OKC made a smart decision, man, when they had Paul George and Russell Westbrook, and Westbrook was playing at an MVP level. And instead of trying to bring someone else in, they blew the entire thing up. And sure, it wasn't great for a couple of years there, but look at them now. I mean, patience can be a virtue in this game. The issue is with Steph Curry, it's not as easy as just saying, hey, let's blow up this entire thing, because, I mean, he's turned the franchise into okay into holy crap, it's the second most valuable franchise in all of American sports.
You cannot blow it up on Steph Curry. Like, their optics matter too, right?
Unless he asks you to blow it up, then it becomes a little easy.
He's not going to do that. Steph Curry has done a lot of nice things for the Warriors. That's not going to be one of them. So, and again, I still think they have an outside chance of stealing one. I mean, they stole a title just a couple years ago. They can do it again if things break right. The question is, what's the best way to put yourself in that position? And you may be right that with no options at the trade deadline, the best way to do that might be to wait till the offseason and see what presents itself, because always something does. It's the NBA. Somebody's getting upset at any given time. But if there is something where you can trade Andrew Wiggins and parts for someone that gives you a little more juice, I would have to think really hard about it, because I don't know exactly what. Again, Wiggins is a good player and a nice, easy fit because he doesn't complain. He does his work when he's out. Like, I like Andrew Wiggins as a player, but he's the most movable asset for the Warriors right now for a variety of reasons. And if there's a way to turn him into, like you've said, a center, if there's a way to turn him into just somebody with a little more scoring juice, who's a little more aggressive, I would take a really hard look at it, because I do think a change could help. I do think you've got a log jam at the 3, 4, 5 positions where they haven't quite figured it out still. And, we're what? About halfway through the season, not quite, nearly halfway through the season. I would look really hard at that, just because as much as Wiggs has done, I don't feel like he's such a critical piece to them right now. And I feel like a lot of what he does could be replaced by people they already have and whoever they would get.
All right. So could Zion Williamson be that player that gives you a scoring punch? It would involve him not being in, warm-up clothes and would involve him being on the floor. But he's someone that's intriguing with a contract that takes him to 2027. It lines him up perfectly with your core, and he's cheaper. Andrew Wiggins and an expiring contract, plus maybe a first rounder, could get the deal done. You buy low and you hope that his stock rises. Mike Brown, fired. Right decision, wrong decision. Should the Warriors look into bringing him back on the bench somehow? Plus, Buddy Hield, down bad. We're putting Matt Kolsky on the hot seat. 60 seconds a pop. It's coming up on Locked On Warriors. All right, let's tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL playoffs almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can finish the season strong. You will get $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. Betting on the over-under, betting on who's going to score a touchdown, props galore, team totals. It's all there on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. The Golden State Warriors were -5.5 against the Phoenix Suns, a very gutsy line considering the performances they put up the last month or so. They do not cover, but they do hit on the money line there. If you want to make more Warriors bets, you could do it on FanDuel.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends over at Built. Built Rewards. If you're a renter, listen up. This is a total game changer. Thanks to Built, you can now earn points on rent payments, just like you do with groceries or travel. Paying rent now comes with serious perks, and it's completely free to join. Earn valuable Built points on your rent and everyday spending at no extra cost. You can redeem those points towards flights, hotel stays, and even future rent payments. I love using my points for travel. Built makes it so easy to turn your rent into rewards. You're already paying rent. Why not make your rent work for you? Start earning points on rent you're already paying at joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. That's joinbuilt, BILT.com/LockedOnNBA. Make sure to use our link so they know we sent you. Don't wait. Start earning rewards today. That's Built. All right, a little rapid fire. Kolsky, you ready for this? First time we've done it. We put you on the hot seat. We got about 6 more minutes of show time. I ask you a question. You give me a quick answer. Let's start with Buddy Hield, man. Draymond Green said, wake the F up or sit the F down. It was caught on a hot mic. Draymond said, hey, I tried different methods on everyone. I've been playing with Buddy Hield for about 30 games now. I hope that this is something that helps make him tick. Is Buddy Hield going to get back to the point that we saw earlier in the season that, quite frankly, looked like a potential all-star? Or is this just who Buddy is?
It's both. This is who he is, but that's also who he is, right? And it's going to come in waves, man. That's just
literally I'm not as good as I once was, but I'm once good as I ever was. That's Buddy Hield in a nutshell.
Yeah, I mean, on any given night, he can hit 7 threes. Also, on any given night, he can miss 7 threes. It's just who Buddy Hield is, and I am very confident if he keeps playing, he'll go through another hot streak, and that'll help the team, But I think Draymond's right in a bigger way than he intended to be when he was screaming at Buddy on the floor, which is, I don't know that it's wake up. I mean, sure, I'm sure he's making defensive mistakes, but again, that's also who he is. When he's hot, throw him out there for 30 minutes. When he's not, sit him the F down. I think that's just what you got to do. That's the type of player he is. If he wasn't, he'd be an all-star, and he's not. So that's what you're dealing with, and you hope he's locked in all the time, and I have no problem with Draymond yelling at him. I think that Draymond explained it very well. He tries everything with guys who are locked in, and I think there will be nights where you'll be glad to have Buddy Hield. So, it sort of is what it is with Buddy.
When he was scoring 20 points a night, the Warriors were winning. They could use another guy that scores 20, even if that guy is Jonathan Kuminga. The way that Wiggins puts up his 17 a night, it's just kind of I don't want to say like a lethargic 17, but he gets the 17 in his sleep, and it doesn't really provide you that scoring punch, that ability to really change a game with his talents. Now, Zion Williamson, he can absolutely change a game when he's on a floor. He's someone that can put up 25, 8, and 5 any given night. He's a potential superstar if he can see the floor. Now, why does Zion Williamson make sense? Well, he's only $35 million, which means that Andrew Wiggins plus one of your expiring deals in Gary Payton or Kevon Looney could potentially get you Williamson, someone that plays big, that can get to the rim, that has a lethal spin move, and that with on the floor together, Jonathan Kuminga, him, Steph Curry, Schroeder, and Draymond, or whatever that 5 is, all of a sudden it looks pretty exciting. Question becomes, you internally, the listener, the viewer, the Matt Kolsky, do you believe that Zion Williamson can provide value for the next 3 years? Because you'd have him until 2027. He'd be that second star you're bringing in.
I would do it. But I would have to acknowledge that there are some obvious issues. Okay.
Huge risk, but huge reward if it works out.
I'm really trying not to hate on Andrew Wiggins because I don't hate Andrew Wiggins, but it's tantalizing. How could you, if you could basically turn Andrew Wiggins into Zion, how could you not? On the other hand, he's hurt all the time. And Andrew Wiggins is on the floor this year anyway, on the floor all the time. Also, he actually makes your logjam worse, right? He's even less of a 3 than Jonathan Kuminga. So he's got to play center, or Draymond does, to get him on the floor, and Kuminga has to play the 3. So you're locking yourself into, because you're not bringing Zion Williamson here to not play if he's healthy, right?
He's not a shooter though, but like defensively, I do think he's versatile. Like he's a quick-footed guy for his size. He can soar, he can run.
And if you can just imagine Steph Curry and Dennis Schroeder running around the outside of the floor, and Zion Williamson and Jonathan Kuminga cutting towards the basket, and Draymond with the ball in his hands making decisions, that is tantalizing, my friend. That is something I would like to watch. And although it obviously comes with significant risk, I don't own the Golden State Warriors, so the risk is not really mine. I just want to see it. That's my attitude on that. If that's something that can happen, I want to see it. And if you could do it for Andrew Wiggins, Gary Payton, and a first-round draft pick, I would not hesitate. I don't know if New Orleans would want to do that. It's obviously, well, first of all, putting Wiggins with Ingram isn't necessarily any better than what they've got. But also it would be really hard for me to move Zion Williamson when he essentially remains like a mystery box of ability. You still haven't, every time he's on the floor for even anything resembling an extended period of time, he does things that are magical, but he hasn't been there. And boy, it would hurt if I'm New Orleans to give up a guy that I still feel like I haven't gotten the best of.
Last 60 seconds for you, Mike Brown, former Sacramento Kings coach, the former defensive coordinator of the Golden State Warriors when they won the championship 21-22. He's looking for a new job. The Kings, who are not off to a good start this season, 5 games below 500, decide to fire Mike Brown, who was just NBA Coach of the Year a couple seasons ago. They brought in DeRozan. They brought back Malik Monk. They thought they had all the pieces in place to be a very good team, and they fire him right around the holidays. Fair or foul, and should the Warriors look into bringing him back?
I think special assistant to the Warriors is written all over Mike Brown. I think it's too obvious not to do. It's a bummer, man. Vivek loves to fire a coach. They brutalized this team. I said it when it happened. DeMar DeRozan is a lovely human being and a very talented basketball player who makes your basketball team worse. And that's what he's doing with the Kings. He takes them out of everything they do. He is not a good fit, and I'm not sure he's a good fit anywhere in 2024. And that's a bummer because DeMar DeRozan really has been great. He is a borderline, if not probable, Hall of Famer. He's just not built for 2024 basketball, man.
Get him on the floor at Big Three, man. Ice Cube would love to have him.
I don't know if they can afford him, but, and I hate to say it because, again, he's talented enough to be in the NBA. But if you don't do the things that teams need out of your position, which includes defending and passing the ball after dribbling for less than 20 seconds, I'm sorry. I really like DeMar DeRozan as a person, and he just made my favorite team, the Chicago Bulls, slow and infuriating for years. So I have a very intimate relationship with how, despite the love that he deserves, he messes up your basketball team. And that to me is the chief issue with the Kings. They had a bad offseason, and Mike Brown gets to get blamed for it. And by the way, this is why you don't fire Steve Kerr, because now the Kings, a team that came into the season with serious aspirations, are 5 games under 500 and being coached by Doug Christie. That's not a serious team. You're not a serious team anymore. If you don't have somebody to replace your guy, you shouldn't be firing him. And especially to do it the way they did. I don't know if you saw Mike Malone going off about it, but Vivek has finally started to gain some credibility back after being a joke for the first 4 or 5 years of his ownership, firing coaches willy-nilly, seemingly having no idea what was going on. And now you're right back in the joke territory for me. Like, you can't fire Mike Brown now, right before he gets on a plane to go coach a game after practice and media availability. It just reeks of small-time garbage.
There's no light in the beam this year in Sacramento. There's just pour one out, everyone. Yeah. Pour one out for Mike Brown, and we'll see if he heads back to the Bay Area. Quick little trip down the road. Matt Kolsky, good stuff on the hot seat for the first time. This is Locked On Warriors, free and available wherever you get your audio podcasts. And be sure to check us out on YouTube. Leave us a like on the way out. Peace.